I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you, listener, for tuning into this episode of the Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James, and today I want to introduce you to a friend of mine from Los Angeles, California. Her name is Apolla Asteria. She is a very, very high vibration person. She's the one I got my shaman spear from. That's one of the things that she does. She builds these crystal-laden spears, and we used mine to help the psychic and the shaman move some beings out of my residence last year. And they said this spear that I bought from Apolla actually was vibrating. It was an amazing gift that I purchased from her. And the work that she does, not only on these spears, but in her quantum touch energy healing is fantastic. If you want to know a little bit more about her, go to shamanspears.com and check out the spears that she has there. And if you want to know a little bit about who she is as a human, not just from the spear making, go to her website, apollaasteria.com. That's Apolla Asteria.com. And you'll see everything that she does, from guitarist to artist to shaman, spear maker to actress. She's considered by many to be a pioneer in the human consciousness shift movement. Her background is deeply rooted in esoteric studies, metaphysics, community service, exopolitics, forbidden archaeology, and again, quantum touch healing, energy healing, art and music. She's a guitar player in a band. She's in her first feature film, VHS, all one word. Was released this year, or I guess last year now. Now we're in 2020. Her path has taken her on many roles. She is appearing tonight, that is Friday, February 7th, 6 p.m. till 6:45 at the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, and she's going to be talking about solutions for humanity. Basically a workshop and very visual representation of a future we can collectively manifest as a human race together. This lecture will go over many solutions that we've suppressed, technologies to homeless, the homeless integration program, circular communities, vertical gardens, and basically telling you the future is brighter than you think. But these suppressed technologies, that's something we're going to touch a little bit on, and the disclosure hopefully coming out, not just that, yes, ETs exist and they've been visiting for a while, but the technology that we have received from them will help us in energy and in healing. So we're going to touch on a bit of that, and I'm going to touch on some of the little key incidents in Apolla's life that have formed her path as she's moved. Things that have kind of, appeared to her in the desert. One down while at a conference, contact in the desert, and a UFO, we'll call it, it was flying, was unidentified, and it was an object. And we're going to discuss certain things that have happened since seeing that object, certain downloads, possibly what they were all about. Of course, we're going to be talking about other things, and it's kind of funny when you start talking to us woo-woo people and we all just kind of sit around and chat. We just assume that the other person really doesn't care about all the different stuff that we've bumped into, but, it pops out in a conversation that we'll end up talking about a big V-shaped craft that came to her in another event out in the desert. So note to self, don't go hang out in the desert with Apolla Asteria, because you are going to probably see something. Now let's go bring her in. Apolla, how are you?
I'm doing great. Honestly, I'm actually a bit exhausted. I've had so much going on. I actually just organized a shoot in Topanga Canyon for my Shaman spears a couple of days ago, and it was a little overwhelming. I had a whole group of people. I had a wizard. He looks like a wizard. He has a long white beard, and I had a group of amazing tribal looking models, girls and guys. Bandmate Chaz was in it. It was a lot to organize. It was really cool. I ended up having 5 photographers come out. Besides that, I've been organizing everything for the Conscious Life Expo coming up this weekend, finishing up my presentation and getting all my art ready and prepared to go. So I have a lot going on right now, that's for sure.
Where's the Conscious Life Expo going to be at?
It's going to be at the LAX Hilton Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this weekend. I actually load in tomorrow, so it's going to be a lot going on. I'll be speaking in Century Hall D, 6 to 6:45 p.m. My presentation is at Tireless Solutions for Humanity. I'm very excited about it. It's actually my fourth time doing this presentation, and I always do a little different. So this one's going to be its own unique version compared to the other ones I've done before, and I'm really excited.
What day do you do that?
That will be on Friday, the first day, from 6 to 6:45. And to anyone who wants to come out that's in the LA area, if you just want to come out that day, it's only $25 to get in that day. The expo is incredible. Even if you don't care to see people speak, there's just tons of booths with crystals and psychics and different interesting people. Pretty much any spiritual person in LA goes there. And it's actually one of the biggest probably the biggest conference I've done every year. It's definitely the biggest one I've been to, because I go to conferences all around the country and speak at them all the time. And this is definitely the biggest one. Russell Brand will actually be headlining it this year, so that's going to be interesting.
I heard Russell is going to be the keynote speaker. You've got people like David Wolf, Greg Brandon, Kimberly Meredith. Oh, you got lots of people.
Yeah, I think there's 200 people coming, or speaking.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. From the whole spectrum, you got Linda Moulton Howe, who is kind of a ufologist and an investigator, and Barry Fitzgerald and Steve Mera, who I interviewed here a couple of days ago.
No way.
Steve on. Yeah, and he's very, very cool. They're going to talk about Project Doorway and a UFO phenomena, and they're out of the UK. Steve Mera is a fabulous guy. He's been doing this for about 30 years. He's been bouncing around doing everything from paranormal, ghostly investigations to the UFO phenomena. Project Doorway they're going to talk about how these things, I don't know if you know this, but a UFO is seen somewhere on Earth every 8 seconds. And
no way.
People are wondering how, do they just travel from one side of the universe to the other because they've got really good tech? Well, they're talking about different ways of traveling, maybe what we would have called a portal, but using just these kind of, I'm going to stick with portal because it's easy for me to figure out, and moving around. So they're going to be there, but you're the one we want to talk about today. We'll touch back on the Conscious Life Expo. That's February 7th to the 10th at the LAX Hilton. And remember, Friday, the 7th, is when Apolla is going to be speaking from 6 to 6:45. Apolla, I've known you for a couple of years. We met originally, I believe, in Arizona at a conference. And then I saw you again in LA at AlienCon a couple of years ago. And so we do we run in the same woo-woo crowd. I'm fascinated with your shaman spears, and I actually bought one. And we'll get into that later, too, on how that was used to help clear spirits and some odd beings out of my residence last year. But I want to know a little bit more about you and what in your path kind of knocked you into the direction you're going now.
Man, I don't even know where to start with this. So I actually had a lady come up to me, this psychic lady came up to me at an event about 2 years ago, and she did a reading on me, and she was just like, wow, when she stopped, and she was like, okay, I've never met anyone like you before. She told me that most people that are awakened, they come through an awakening at some point in their lives, but she was like, I've never met anyone who has always been awake. You just always been awake, like, since you were born. I started thinking about, I'm like, I don't, like, lots of people tell me about this awakening process they have. And obviously throughout your life, you're always awakening more and more. But I don't ever remember having a point where I was just like, whoa. I was like raised by quantum touch energy healers. Like not my parents. My parents they're not really into spiritual stuff as much, but my uncles, they were quantum touch energy healers, and my aunts also, they just really like understood a lot with the corruption in government, secret societies and HARP and all these kind of things just growing up. I remember we would always just meet at Starbucks and Barnes and Nobles every Sunday. I'm actually from Peoria, Illinois. We would just meet every Sunday, and I would always go to the New Age book section. Like, pretty much, I'm like a huge reader. So basically, as soon as I could start reading, which was, I think before kindergarten, I would just read an entire book every night. I was just a huge nerd. I think about the time I was in first grade, second grade, I was reading an entire chapter book, literally like entire novels every single night. It was like, most people go out and play with their friends. I like going outside too, but normally I'd just be like inside reading, and that's pretty much all I ever did growing up, and I still do that. But I was always just very interested in ancient civilizations. Lost civilizations were what was really like the main thing that really intrigued me growing up. And it's funny because with my spears, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but even when I was younger, I would go out in the woods, and I had a thing with like fairies. So I would always like go to the New Age section at Barnes Nobles, and I had all these different books about fairies and like nature spirits. And I would actually go in the forest and try to find like mushroom rings and pick sticks and carve them and make little fairies out of like flower petals. I don't really ever remember there being a point where I wasn't into this sort of thing. Like, it was pretty much my whole life. I don't know if you've heard of Adventures Unlimited Press. They are, the producer of Ancient Aliens owns it, David Childress. And it just so happens that his printing house is like about an hour outside my hometown, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the cornfields. They have like a great bookstore out there that has all the books from everyone the UFO scene, and pretty much everything in this area, like spiritual studies, metaphysics, UFO phenomena, ancient civilizations. They have all these books from all the authors in this community in this store. So I always made trips there all the time growing up and got new books. I've really been researching all this my entire life.
Yes, I've been to David's store in Conwood, Arizona. And same thing, Adventures Unlimited. And like you say, it's just filled with everything from cryptozoology to ufology to all the local Arizona books on UFOs, plus all the books from the printers out in Illinois. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, it's closer to you too. You don't have to go all the way back to Illinois. Get a bounce over to Arizona and go see where David's new bookstore is. Or I shouldn't say new bookstore, it's been there for a while, but I guess it's the Western Adventures Unlimited, David Childress's store. What got you into the whole UFO side of things?
What got me into the UFO stuff was my intrigue with lost civilizations. I just like always felt like there was a lot more to our history that we weren't being told. I remember growing up being in school and they would be teaching us different things in history class. A lot of it just wouldn't sit right with me. I'm just like, no, that's not right. I get a feeling like in the pit of my stomach. I definitely am an intuitive person, and I always would get sort of just a feeling when things just didn't seem right to me. And I always wanted to know more. So I got really into actually the area of the gods and goddesses. I was really studying that. And then that kind of led me to the whole idea of ancient aliens. And I was really into researching that before Ancient Aliens was really like a show on TV. That was my main interest for a long time. And that's actually how I came up with my stage name when I was about 18, before I moved to LA. Apolla, it actually hints at Artemis. So Apollo, and I didn't realize this at the time. So Apollo is a god of music, right, from ancient Greece. And I wanted to make a girl version because at the time I was DJing. So I just was like, oh, Apolla, because Apollo is god of music. But then a little later, I was doing some more research after I'd moved to LA, and I realized that Artemis is Apollo's twin sister. And so I did some research on her, and I realized usually she's portrayed as a redhead, maiden goddess of the wild and the hunt. So I read into the archetype, and I realized that I channeled the archetype like 100%. So I read a book, The Goddess in You. It shows basically the gods and goddesses, they're like an ancient form of psychology, and they all represent different energy archetypes that we all have within ourselves. So I read the entire chapter on Artemis, and I realized it just like was mind blowing how much it was like me. Like, and they're like, so this is what women who channel Artemis are like, and it listed exactly those characteristics would be. It was really strange because during this time, this is about 6 years ago when I moved to LA, I started reading the Iliad and the Odyssey right when I was figuring all this out. Right after I finished reading it, the day after, I went to the Getty Villa, and there was a whole hall in the Iliad and the Odyssey. I had no idea I was going to be there.
Apolla, I think that's kind of cool how you pick a stage name, make the female version of Apollo, and you're a musician, you play guitar, you're in a band, and you're traveling out from Illinois to the West Coast to move to California, like so many others aspiring, and you did well because you are an actress and you are in a band and you do many things, but you actually picked a name that resonated to not only you but to others around you, and you attracted the Apollos and the Dionysus, all those other gods, people of that vibration to you, and they're still in your life today. Through those people, I think, isn't that how you came to kind of develop your first shaman spear?
So around the time I was reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, a friend of mine in LA came up to me and he was like, hey, I'm doing a comic book and I really want to use your Artemis character for it. Because all my friends knew about the Artemis character because I was working on this show like a lot. He was like, I want you to make a weapon and I just want to take a picture for reference and then I'm going to make the comic book. I had just gone into Topanga Canyon and picked some bamboo, and I had one like long pointy rose quartz crystal that I had just bought offline. I was like, I don't have a weapon. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. And he was like, well, I need you to make one or something right now. I just need a picture real quick. He was actually a rap artist, and I was with his producer at the time. So they were working together in another room. And I was just thinking, I've been reading the Iliad and the Odyssey. So I was thinking, like, people don't ever carry around spears or like staves anymore. That was like really a thing. So I just grabbed the bamboo that I had just gotten to Topanga Canyon, and I put the pointy rose quartz on the end, and I started wrapping it together. And, they were in the middle of this recording session, so I was bored. So I just started adding more stuff to it and wrapping things on, and added another crystal to the other end, and fur as like a handle on it. And it just was this really sweet, like spear, like wand thing I had made. And I was like, here's my weapon. And they're like, wow, that is really cool. So I ended up taking it to a festival, Cosmic Carnival, a little while later. Everyone at this festival was like, wow, that's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Do you sell those? And I was like, no, I actually haven't made more yet, but I guess I probably should. So then I started making more and selling them. And at first I just kind of like bedazzled them. I don't know. And so I wire wrapped the crystals on each end and then leather wrapped them. But then I realized I wanted to really make it like technology, because I work with different energy channeling modalities, and I wanted to see what I could make, how I could use these as technology. So I realized the bamboo is hollow, so I can work with this. So I started collecting crystals and sand from sacred places around the world because I'm interested in ancient civilizations. I really like to go to all the ancient sacred sites like Egypt, Machu Picchu, places like that. So I go around, like, I'm a huge adventurer, so I just like to travel a lot. And anywhere I go, I just collect sand from the place. And so I started putting the sand and crystals down the insides and copper coils. And later I started adding magnets. And then at one point I started putting naturally magnetic hematite sand in them. So a little while later, it was weird because a little while after I started adding the hematite sand in, all these articles started coming out all over online saying that scientists apparently have found that we have hematite in our brains, and that actually is what makes us capable of being telepathic. So because it's magnetics, so we're all interacting with each other magnetically. And so those being done on the insides of the spears, like, it connects your consciousness with the spears. So it's funny, I actually really like to go hiking with them. That's like my favorite thing. Like a lot of people will buy them and use them for, energy work or just keep them in their room. But really my favorite thing is just go on a hike and interact with it while I'm hiking. I do this all the time. Every time I go hiking, if I have friends with me, I will give them spears, and then I make them all go hiking with my spears, and it's always just really great experience. But another part with my process with the spears was my craziest paranormal experience that I ever had was about 5 or 6 years ago. It was the first time I went to Contact in the Desert, one of the biggest UFO conventions in the United States. It's in Joshua Tree. And a few days before the event started, I was out in the desert, and I was just in the middle of the desert, and I was talking to some people, and they were facing me, so they didn't see this happen, but there was a meteor shower that was supposed to be going on that night. So I was kind of looking at the sky. I wasn't really paying attention to what they were saying, and I saw something streaking down from the sky. And I was about to say, hey, look, guys, there's a meteor. But then I stopped and I realized it started coming closer, and it was this glowing lime green ball of light. And as it came closer, it just stopped, I think maybe like 10 feet ahead of me, and it just hovered over this tree for a while. And it was about eye level with me. And I swear it was like it wanted me to see it. Like it was just for me to see, because the people I was talking to, they had their backs to it. And I just connected with it for like a minute, and then it just sort of shot forward and disappeared. And I looked all over online. I saw that Joshua Tree Native Americans see these all the time, and apparently they called them nature spirits. And right around that time, I started getting a lot of downloads about the crop circles. Like it just, for some reason, I was just seeing them like in my mind a lot, and they just kept coming to me. And I didn't really know much about them. Like I hadn't really seen like any researchers work on them at the time, but I just kind of thought like, wow, I should really share, like the aliens really, or whatever make these. This is a message out that they probably really want out there. So I started painting them on my spears. I thought maybe it would be interesting if I put the crop circles on my spears, what it would do to the energy of the spears. And so I started doing that, and this was right after the green orb experience. And a little while after that, I decided to do more research on crop circles. And apparently tons of people have actually seen these balls of light coming down and forming crop circles in New England. And I think it was the same, whatever it is, this ball of light. Apparently they're balls of plasma. I don't know if they're like, I think they might be some sort of interdimensional being. And that's the form they come in when they come in our dimension. I believe it might be something like that. And then I realized a little while after that, I'd actually had several other experiences in the past with this lime green light. So about 4 years previously, when I was in my parents' basement in the Midwest, when I was in like high school, I remember at one point I was dreaming, and in my dream, I was in this like shaded forest, or it was like this foggy forest, or it was like misty, and I was leaning against this rotten log, and this old lady that was like hunched over started coming to me out of the darkness, and she was holding a lantern, and in the lantern was this glowing lime green ball of light. And she came forward and touched the middle of my forehead and said something, and I have no idea what she said, but when I came to, I was just completely paralyzed. I had sleep paralysis. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I knew I was back in my body, but I could not open my eyes or move my fingers or anything for about 2 or 3 minutes. As soon as I woke up, I just took off running upstairs, like freaking out, because I had no idea what happened. I was like, that was weird. And another experience was like my first psychedelic experience I had when I was younger in high school, my senior year of high school. I saw a lime green tree of life that there was like a point where I just kind of left my body. Like I wasn't really like where I was at. Like I was sitting in a room, but I wasn't there. I was like on this other side of the universe, and I saw this lime green tree of light. And so I realized, I think all of these experiences are interconnected. I've seen like visions of like a lime green being like in my consciousness around me at times. So I don't know exactly what this is, but that's definitely my main like UFO experience.
Well, that's interesting how that's connected throughout your life, these lime green or the green beings, the green orbs. It's fascinating how that has kind of threaded its way through your life. Let's go back. I just want to get you to clarify one of the things you said. What did you mean by downloads about the crop circles that you got after you saw that green orb at Joshua Tree?
I just started seeing them everywhere. And it's weird because I have I get downloads a lot with like sacred geometry symbols. So first I was getting them with sacred geometry symbols. Like before I knew what sacred geometry symbols even were, I had this one download one time where I was just laying in bed and I felt like it was like the consciousness, like source consciousness or like God consciousness came to me, and it put this like vision in my head of Fibonacci spiral. And it was like the Fibonacci spiral with like a diagram over it. And it told me that this was something really important that I needed to know what it meant. Right after that, another image came in my head, and it was like all these like sort of like beings. I think it was like a bunch of these like orbs, but I think they were like souls. They represented souls, and they were going through a part in the universe, and there was like a veil, and some of them changed when they went through the veil, and some of them didn't change, and they just kind of fell away. And I asked God or the universe, whatever it was, what it meant. I didn't really know what it was at the time, but I asked him if I would be one of the ones that changed and went on, or if I would be one of the ones that fell away. And it told me whichever you choose. So I didn't know what that meant at the time. And then I realized a little while later, I started finding out about the human consciousness shift and the whole 5D ascension shift. And I realized it must have had something to do with that. So that was pretty mind-blowing when I figured that out. But
sorry, Apolla, when you talk about the green lights, this is one of those questions that you, as a policeman, you're never supposed to ask somebody because you're actually leading you. But have you heard of the? I'm not going. I'm going to. At that point, I'm not going to ask you the question now. But have you heard of a description of a light, and these were called green fireballs? Is that kind of what this could be?
I have no.
Fireball, or can you? Was it an orb that was lime green, or
it was an orb? So it was like, it was like an orb of like light, like energy or something.
And was it, how big were these things?
It was about, I think, I mean, I was a little far away from it, but I was about 10 feet or 10 yards away from it, but it looks like about the size of like a basketball or a beach ball.
Okay.
From where I was standing.
All right.
And Clifford Mahudi, I don't know if you know of him. He's a speaker in the UFO scene. He's from the Zuni tribe, so he's like a medicine man. He said that he has experiences with this lime green ball of light all the time as well. He actually was talking about it in a presentation. So I asked him after, I was like, well, what is it? Do you know what it is? And he told me the same thing someone else had told me previously, that it actually represents Archangel Raphael, I believe.
Raphael is green.
Raphael. Yeah. So I don't know.
You see, in 1949, there was a thing called Project Twinkle, and it was in regards to a network of green fireball observations and photographs. And they actually put these units together. It was discontinued after a couple of years when the official conclusion that the phenomena was probably natural of origin. But green fireball has been given this natural, man-made, and extraterrestrial origins. They're both associated to the Cold War and possibly like some kind of spy versus spy stuff going on, and ufology. And because of the extensive government paper trail on this phenomenon, many ufologists consider the green fireballs to be among the best documented examples of unidentified flying objects. But I don't think what you're describing is what has been described over time as the green fireball. But I'm not sure, because
I mean, is it described as a ball of light? Is that how? I mean, I don't think it seemed like fiery to me. It seemed like a ball of like light, but maybe that,
it comes down to whoever saw it first and then described it, right? If somebody sees it as light. They may describe it as fire, but they were mostly seen in the southwest U.S. and around New Mexico. But then back again, New Mexico is where they did all the nuclear testing back in the day, back in the 40s. So it was near areas like Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratory and the Sandia bases around that part. And they talked to meteor experts and things. But I'm gonna defer back to the Raphael and the orb shapes. Now, I interviewed a guy a few years ago who was followed by these things, and his weren't green, but they were amber. And he would be driving. Actually, one was silver, like a full-on chrome silver, above the tree line and above the telephone pole line. As he was driving, it was pacing him. Those through psychics who had contact with, like, the ET contact psychic people, were describing them as his light family and light beings that are literally checking up on us in our lives. Anywhere between a volleyball shape to a little bit bigger than a basketball. In the psychics that I've been talking to on my shows since 2014, going to conferences like the Conscious Life and having a beer with people who are a little more intuitive and seers of that kind of thing, we talk about these, and we talk about them a lot as being light beings and family members that are coming, and they're basically guiding us. So adding that theory or those kind of conversations to your story, that is the first time I've heard this, is that after your first encounter with one of these, you started receiving things.
Yes. When you were just talking, I remembered I had this whole experience of being taken up in a ship every night after that as well. I believe it was right after that experience.
Yeah.
I would like me to talk about that.
Yeah, and I'd be interested too. I want you to think about it, whether you thought it was actually a ship or could it have been just an actual location somewhere else?
Well, it was weird. It was like that whole summer, I believe it was after this experience. Now I think about it, I never thought I made this connection before, but I believe it was right after this experience for like an entire summer. It was like every single night this ship came. I don't know. It seemed like a ship to me because it was like a room with like a lot of different people in it, and they were all wearing like lab coats, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it was like different people every time, and I would get in, and then we would go and like land on a different place every night. And I have like two major ones I remember, but the major one that really stuck in my memory was this one night we landed on, it looked to me like the surface of the moon. It had, it was like gray, it had like craters. And I remember coming down, and there was like a glass structure it was like an underground structure, like on the surface in a crater. And we landed on the glass, and then the glass kind of came down into like a ramp into the underground facility. Like it just sort of like went down like this. And it became like a ramp that led to the underground facility. So we got out of the ship, and I remember getting out of the ship and walking down the ramp. And the other people I was with, I remember they all kind of almost looked like they were confused about why they were there. So I don't know what that was about. It would be like different people every night too. And so I got out of the ship, and I was walking down the glass ramp, and all these like little gray aliens came out, a bunch of like little short ones. They're like, I don't know, 3-4 feet tall. And they all came running up to me, and it was like they were excited to see me. And they're all like talking, but like with their hands and stuff, but like there was no words coming out of their mouths. It was just telepathically, but they were kind of still talking with their hands. You know what I mean? Like, when someone's excited and they're talking, like, so they all came running up to me. They're like, and then like, we all turned around, and the glass had come back up into the ceiling again. And there was like 3 more ships that were coming down, and they landed on the glass. The glass came back down to the ramp, and a bunch more of the little gray aliens came running out and came up to us. That one like really stuck with me.
I'm thinking, those are abduction scenarios that you're just remembering.
Yeah.
And whether they're in lab coats and things like that, if you don't actually remember the reason that you were there, or the questioning, or things like that, they make that sometimes will come later, or you can go to through some of the hypnotherapists will do a bit of a regression, and they'll take you back and you'll start remembering. When you and I were at Alien Con in LA, there was a gentleman who had some missing time, and he got a regression in the little booth right beside me from the Skeeter Wellhouse, the psychic I was with. She actually, that regression, when he started to remember, it was interfered with by an alien being who came in, and Skeeter basically had a epileptic seizure.
Oh my God, I remember you telling me about that. Yeah,
and this being was trying to get her to stop opening that guy's memory up. And then a more powerful ET came through and told the less powerful ET to just leave everybody alone, and it was time. This guy remembered it. It was fascinating. Wow. It was absolutely fascinating. It was freaky to watch Skeeter going through her seizure, but she came out of it okay, and everything just totally, the energy completely changed in the area. But wow, that was spooky. But you may remember when it's time for you to remember. And
yeah, I think I had some experiences when I was younger too, because I remember at one point when I don't know how, I must have been like 7 or something like that. Every single night, I just started telling my parents that I was scared that aliens were going to come get me. And I kept boarding up my window, shutting my windows and locking them. And I was just like really freaked out that aliens were going to come get me for some reason out of nowhere. And I kept telling them I wanted to come sleep in their room. And I don't know, it was really weird. So I don't know where that came from. And I remember I would look out the blinds and see these lights coming down in the sky, and then close my window. So I think something must have happened where my memories were wiped at that point as well.
Yeah. And then there are also the types that, if you were to come public or start talking about abductions, then the military want to jump in. You end up being one of those fancy MyLab people who get pulled away by the military and interviewed on what type of being abducted you and what was the purpose, what do you remember, because we're just checking up. So you don't want to get into that side of things. Do you think, or have you ever talked about your uncle who wrote the Quantum Touch people that you were raised with? Did they ever talk about possible abduction scenarios or?
They were never really into the UFO stuff. That's something they didn't really ever talk to me much about that.
Yeah, because it's usually these things they run in the family, and it's not a one-off. It's going to be you, your parents, siblings, your grandparents, and it spreads out from there. Because it's should definitely talk to them about that. I'll see if I can get anything. I haven't really talked to them about that before, so. Yeah, and phrase it more into, we'll call it extended dreaming. Or have you ever dreamt that you actually went out into space and were hanging out with light beings? And, don't drop UFOs and actually maybe even not the term light being on them too hard, but kind of ease them into, so have you ever had weird dreams where you're, up in a spaceship or something? And see what they say. And I bet they have. And
definitely.
I'm betting it's your uncle.
It's my dad's brother. Two of my dad's brothers and one of his sisters. My dad's the youngest of 9 kids, and that side of the family is actually that's where I get my redhead genes. But it's interesting because my grandma, my dad's mom, died when I was 3. I think her aunt and her sisters, apparently they were all redheads, and there was this thing where a lot of them had died and then came back to life. Back in the past when people died, it was the middle of nowhere in Arkansas, they would just lay them out on a table or whatever and prepare them to bury them, and they would be dead for a day or two and then come back to life. And apparently she thought that her sister might have been buried alive. So I don't know what's up with that, but I think there's some interesting DNA in there.
We're talking to Apolla Asteria. She is out of Los Angeles. She is a lot of things and a very, very busy young woman. She has a website I'd like you to go to, shamanspears.com. That's shamanspears.com. You can also go to apollaasteria.com. That's APOLLA. Asteria.com. She's a guitarist, an artist, an actress, and is in a movie coming out, VHS.
VHS, yeah. I'm actually, that's my first major movie I've been in. I've mostly been in TV shows up until this point, and this movie, Tim Robbins produced it, his son directed it, and it just aired in theaters all over the country, and the reviews did so well that it's VHS, one word. But the reviews did so well that it might possibly, they said they're going to do an announcement party in March.
What is it you're going to be talking about at the Conscious Life Expo this weekend in Los Angeles at the LAX Hilton on Friday from 6 to 6:45?
So my presentation is on solutions for humanity, and I basically go over all this. I take up all the concepts of whatever I think is the solution to help us as a human, as a collective race, to make our planet a better place to be. And so basically a lot of it, like the main part of my presentation really goes over circular communities, vertical gardens, self-sustained communities, earthships. That's a huge part of my presentation. And so I go over, if you don't know what vertical gardens are, they're like basically skyscrapers that have gardens all the way up the inside. So it's just like different things that we could be doing, that we have the technology to use. Like, all these communities, they can be run completely by free energy as well. And so I'll be talking about, like, literally we already have the technology to do this with these circular communities that I'll be going over, and we're not using it. So with the whole climate change thing that's going on, it's like literally we already have all the technology out there to change the way we're doing things, but we're just not. So I wanted to really provide a way of doing things or like a way of visualizing where we could be going. Because I feel like with the news these days, it's just all, negative stuff. It's like, oh, we have these problems and these problems and these problems. And no one talks about where we could be going with things. And if we have a way of visualizing at least like what could be possible in the future, I think it'd be easier for us to change things and start moving in that direction. But besides that, like, that's the end of my presentation. Before that, I go over, the importance of full disclosure. I say, actually, the first one is like eradicating the globalist cabal. I don't know, not really eradicating, but, the problem of what these people in power, what these elitists have been doing. And obviously, if all these sealed indictments do go out that everyone's been talking about, more people will just take their spot, because what the problem is we don't have a sense of community in our modern society. And I really think we need to pull that back into our modern day society. So that's a change I've actually made in my presentations, different than the past ones I've done. I kind of realized that, because before I just put, eradicating the globalist cabal, and, all these people are doing all the top 1%, all the horrible things they're doing. But really, if you think about it, if you did get rid of these people, more of them would take their place, because it's an addiction to greed. And the reason why that is because we have lost our sense of community in modern day society. So I'm really going to go over that in relation to what it would mean to have a gift exchanging society, and how an economy like that would work, and the circular communities, and also suppressed technology, and the importance of full disclosure.
Apolla, when you're talking about disclosure, are you talking about ET disclosure?
Yes, but also in relation to suppressed technology, like all the black budget underground programs. They have all this technology that's years and years beyond where we're at now. And what's really important about full disclosure is getting this technology into the hands of the people, because, they have life extension technology, and they already have anti-gravity technology. They already have all this technology, and they're not giving it to us. And free energy technology that's like way more advanced than fossil fuels. And it's like, why are we not using this? Obviously, our tax dollars, I don't know about Canada, but I know in the United States, our tax dollars are going to these black budget programs and we're not seeing anything from it. So that's really what's most important, in my opinion, about full disclosure. Obviously, all the UFO stuff is awesome, but we really need to get this technology into our hands as well.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I think it's about time we tap into any of that technology that is out there that we may have found either lying in a farmer's field in Roswell and reverse engineered to possibly stuff given to us by our neighbors around the galaxy.
Yeah, see, that's the thing with it. It's like a lot of people are saying like the government's really trying to do a soft disclosure program right now. Like apparently Gaia is possibly a part of that, and I can see that going on. Like you can see if you look at all the movies that are coming out for little kids these days, a lot of them are about like little alien cartoons, you know? So I can see that we are being prepped to like be more open-minded. And I do feel like the younger generations are more open-minded to this than the older generations are. So I really feel like around the time when after some of these older generations start dying off, I really feel like this is going to be fully coming out and people will be more prepared. But I think a lot of people don't realize this, that most of these ET races are really benevolent from what I've heard. I mean, obviously there's the reptilians and everything, but there's contracts and they're not supposed to kind of intervene with Earth. I really don't think like people should be that worried.
Yeah, there's what I've heard too is in regards to reptilians, there's so many reptilians that there's some of those are real idiots and some aren't.
Yeah,
so we've got reptilians that working with us and dealing with the reptilians that they're actually having arguments with. It's a typical, interracial bonanza of it said. It's like, one group of reptilians have come here and they're trying to get us to understand that those reptilians over there are bad and we're the good ones. Even though we look the same, we might be a little bit taller and more muscular and they're shorter and have tool belts, but there are, and that gets into that whole my lab thing. And okay, you were taken in a spaceship. Okay, who took you? What do they look like? What do they want? Because some of them flying around here aren't that good, and we just want to double check. And if you don't tell us, we're going to waterboard you. What? No, I'll tell you. I think it was a little green one. Okay, fine, we're good. We're not going to move on. We'll move on from there. But it's interesting that your dreams or your memories, actually you had grays in it, the little grays coming up to you. That was kind of cool. That's interesting because grays, what I understand, that they work for more of the higher vibration ones. They're the little worker bees.
Really? I've heard a lot that they're like androids, like that our government uses them as androids. Have you heard about that? I mean, but I know there's like different types of grays.
Oh, there's a ton of different types. There's really tall ones too. There's tall ones with the little ones that seem to have no real empathy for us, are almost the robotic ones. They're the ones that take you from point A to point B. I was talking to Travis Walton about his experience when his abduction in Arizona back in the 70s. And he basically, there was three little grays at the table where he kind of came to on, and he punched one of them in the head. It's like he got up, and, he's a teenager. He's got a wrecked shoulder. He's scared, and he fight or flight, and he's a scrappy little logger, and he punched this thing in the head, and they got up and grabbed a piece of some metal tool or something, held it up like he was going to thump him, and then took off out the door. And eventually he ran into a couple of great big kind of, I can't remember now where they were Nordic types, but non-grays who telepathically said, "Hey, chill, buddy. You can go home. We're just trying to fix your arm." And then they dropped him off a couple of, 5 days later or whatever it was. But it was more of an accidental injury, and they felt bad, so they brought him up to fix him. But they got the grays to kind of do the, take him to, they were the laborers, where the higher vibration beings were running everything. And they said, look, we're sorry about this. We just need to fix your arm, and we'll send you home. He's actually that was back in the 70s. He had an incident back in 2014 too. So they're kind of keeping track of him. They're checking in on him and things like that. Kind of probably what they're doing with you, Apolla.
Yeah, it was exciting to see them. Like, I remember, like, I was excited to see them. Like, they were just like, oh, you know, they were like talking with their like hands at me, and like telepathically, I just like their vibe was like they were excited to see me. Like, it was really funny. Like, I was actually like having a good time, you know? So I know they were positive, like whatever they were, like they just were really fun and positive to me.
And when you break down the way you felt and your description to the others too, you had other people on there that were confused. And it sounded like, okay, that was their first time. Or maybe their second time. But you're like old school at being abducted. So you're just like, oh, okay, this is different for me. I've never been here before, but oh, there's my little buddies. Everything's going to be okay. Because you know at the end of the day, because of your experience doing this previously, you know actually you go home at the end of the day or at the end of the night kind of thing. You know that it's all going to work out. Where the first time or the second time for people are like, oh, crap, what am I getting myself into?
So you think my memories were like wiped like many times before I was doing this?
I'm going to say yes, and it's easier to suppress it when you're young and open because they just plant. Okay, you're just dreaming.
Yeah,
it's a dream. You're gonna wake up at home. It's a dream. Everything will be okay. Now, one of the things we used to do is with my paranormal group, we have one of the girls in the paranormal group, amazing young lady. She walked out. She had a little daughter, and she had a birthday party in the backyard and had a pool. And she come walking out of the kitchen and looked up, and above her, very slowly moving over the entire neighborhood, was a V-shaped spaceship a couple of miles across. And it was just slowly moving over, and she looked at this thing and froze and looked at the people who were in the backyard at the pool, and nobody else could see it. And she said, okay, I'm crazy. And she watched it continue, and it just drifted away. But nobody else could see this except her. And then she had dreams like you, where she would wake up in different locations, or at being, well, we'll call it, she was abducted. And she'd wake up sometimes, she'd go to bed, tuck herself in, and she'd wake up the next day, and her bed was made, and she'd be sleeping diagonally across the made bed. And it's like, oh crap, what the heck happened here? I've been abducted, and I had maid service. That's kind of cool. So what somebody suggested she do is take two playing cards, or a playing card, and put it beside the bed, or poker chips, or a couple of quarters, a couple of coins, and you lay them there side by side, and you put the intention out before you go to sleep that if I'm taken tonight, before I go to sleep, could you make sure, and when I get brought back, can you make sure that the coins are piled up one on top of another, or the cards are one on top of another? And that's the intention. You just, in your mind, you put that out there. So sure enough, one of these nights mornings, she wakes up and the bed's made and she's diagonal. Just before she has a complete freak out, she looks over, and sure enough, the 2 quarters are piled up. So it's like, yeah, we took you. And
I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, you're okay. Everything's fine. And then put the coins up. And, of course, you get skeptics saying, well, first of all, she was not abducted. And secondly, she probably did it herself in her sleep. Yeah, okay, move along. Open your mind up a little bit more than that and think about some of the other ways that this could have happened. But, her daughter would do the same thing. She'd come in her daughter's room in the morning, and their daughter's bed would be made, and the daughter would be sleeping on top of it. So, it's ET maid service, which happens. Check to see if that happens to you. Request it, actually, if you've got... Unless you probably have a...
Just kind of go to sleep with the intention of it.
I wonder if you could actually ask to be taken. Like, I know there are people out there, you go to Sedona, Arizona, and there's people on top of the vortexes, shouting, take me, and the ETs are probably like, oh, no, not another one of those, please. We're not going to take you. It's like, They'll take the ones that they're supposed to at the time they're supposed to. I talked to Tom Dongo, who's going to be on next week. Tom is a UFO researcher, intuitive, lives in Cottonwood, just between Jerome, Arizona, and Sedona. He's been for 30 years. He and his buddies, heck, back in the day, they were out chasing UFOs with CB radios around, and he was at a ranch called the Bradshaw Ranch, incredibly active, kind of like the Skinwalker Ranch, and he'd be on that place taking pictures of these orbs moving and whatever, and they would actually, the UFOs would wait at the end of the road for him to pull out on the road, and they'd parallel him as he drove away. And wow. He would just, he's pretty cantankerous old guy. He'll be 75 in another week or so, and it's like he would think to himself, oh yeah, I'm in no mood for this. And as soon as he would put that thought out, it would take off. And it was like, okay, we understand. Because, yeah, I'm hungry and I'm tired, I'm going home. And then it would just disappear. They'd take off in a second, flash, and boom, gone. But he's seen UFOs to the point where he can pull up. He had a tour, and he pulled up on a Jeep, and some of the tour people, and over the hill was a UFO being repaired.
No way.
And big orbs over top of it. And the full-on UFO was like they were working on it, and they worked on it for about 4 or 5 hours. And they allowed him and the people on the tour to watch them. And other times he's looked out, and because he's intuitive, and he's felt. I said, I think there's something out there. He's actually said it out loud. Would you let us see you? And like, boom, something happened, and these ships were like half a mile across.
Wow!
And then as quickly as it came in, it turned off.
I think one time I had a strange experience when I was in Nevada. I believe it was at Area 52, not Area 51, but Area 52. There's like these different districts that scientists own, and this was apparently Area 52 is a tourist research facility or area, a tourist research area. But so I was at a weird like little festival in the middle of the desert there. And early in the morning, I was out in the middle of the desert with a bunch of people. And we were kind of further from where the festival was going on. And it was just a little moon tribe, like burner event, I think. And there was like this big triangular ship came right down over us, and we're all looking and we're like, oh my God, that's crazy. Because, you know, it's crazy when a plane is low, but this was a big like triangular craft, and it was right above us, and it was loud too. There was all this sound, and we're looking at it, and all of a sudden it disappeared. It wasn't there anymore, and the sound was gone. And, you know, this sky is like open for like miles, you know, there wasn't any mountains blocking the view or anything. So we're like, wait, where did it go? It was like literally right above us. And then it was gone and the sound was gone. And we're like, what was that? It's like, I don't know if it was, but I felt like because we're in the air, you know, we're in Nevada. So I figured maybe it was a backwards engineered craft from our government because, you know, there's like a lot of that going on in that area.
That area is the Tonopah Test Range military installation near Tonopah, Nevada. That's Area 52. Or it could have been that is the code name for Stargate Command.
Really?
In the TV series Stargate, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's Area 51 is like obviously Groom Lake in that area, but yeah, the Tonopah Test Range is how far is that from Groom Lake? Well, Tonopah was built in the 50s. It's 70 miles northwest of Groom Lake with the Area 51 facility. So, yeah. I wonder where Area 1 is. I've
been wondering that, too. Like, where are all these areas at? Like, I guess they're just all over the United States. They're like districts that they...
well, you know... It's the other thing too. It's a government thing too. You've got you've heard of SEAL Team 6, right? And
yeah.
And the SEAL teams. Well, when they first started the SEAL teams, they had them like SEAL Team 4, SEAL Team 5. There was no 1, 2, and 3. It just so if the Russians or whoever found out they had a SEAL Team 6, they go, oh, crap, where's the SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 2? Well, they started numbering high up, so
that makes
just
sense.
Confuse people. So who knows? That could be it. But I was talking to Bob Lazar, who would fly in to Groom Lake and Area 51, and then hop on a bus and drive out to S4, which was the in the mountain military reverse engineering base. So that's an interesting guy to talk to. So if you're ever at a conference and you got Bob Lazar, get him talking, and which is hard because he doesn't give a rat's bottom whether you believe him or not, and a lot of times our buddy Jeremy Corbell will drag him out to these things. Jeremy did the documentaries on Bob Lazar and the Skinwalker Ranch, but Jeremy at least will get Bob out to these, but he'd rather just stay home and hang out with the wife and do the stuff he does at his lab. But yeah, he's a fascinating man. Very fascinating man.
You know, Jim Goodall, his friend Jim Goodall?
Yeah.
He wants me to come out to Area 51 with him and small group of people, and apparently he knows how to, like, get through a certain part of it, and he wants to take me.
Oh, really?
So I think I might be doing that with the next
everybody knows
months.
now that Jim Goodall knows the secret entrance into Area 51. Okay, we won't tell anybody or let the government know that he knows.
Well, I don't think it's like but like near it, you know. I don't really know. Yeah, I shouldn't talk about it on here, but we're doing a little adventure in the area. And,
Well, Area 51, like when they did the whole invade Area 51 thing, I thought it would be really good for the U.S. Air Force just to open up the gates and have a recruitment thing in there. Because there's nothing there. There is nothing at Area 51.
Right, that's what I heard. I heard it was all moved to Utah, a base in Utah.
No, it's all down the road in S4. Which is the base inside the mountain where they're reverse engineering the UFOs. The one Bob Lazar worked on, I don't know if it was the one he was spending all his time on, but it was found in an archaeological dig and was dated back. It went down 10,000 years ago. And there's 9 UFOs in that location. And he would take his buddy, after he left, he would take buddies up to not Groom Lake, but another dry lake bed on Wednesday evenings to watch the UFOs be test driven. And
I've heard about that. Yeah.
And then they got caught. But yeah, very cool. Very, very, very interesting location. I'm going back to Sedona, Arizona as soon as I can here. Well, I'm doing.
I love Sedona. I've been to a couple events there recently, and oh my God, it's so amazing.
Did you ever go out to see the UFOs? Do the tours?
I didn't do any tours, but I saw UFOs. Like I usually see, like, you know, the stars zigzagging around. That's all I've seen there. It's like, you know, stars zigzagging around the sky. It looks like a star, but it's because it's so far away. Yeah, I didn't ever see any up close ones. There's
Melinda Leslie, who is she's not going to be at your event. She's at another event coming up in San Francisco, I think next weekend. But she puts the tours on. I was talking to her at the UFO Congress in Phoenix, and she said out of 1,180 some tours she had taken people out on, only once they didn't see anything. And on 35 of those, they saw the full constructed V ones move across. The rest of them, the ones that I saw when I was up there, they look like satellites, but they're traveling in groups and they're stopping and going and doing right turns, like you say, zigzagging and things like that, which, you know, satellites don't do. And all I can tell you is that they were unidentified, they were flying, and they were objects.
Right.
And that was cool. That was good enough for me. I left there giddy. Me and a whole bunch of Japanese tourist ladies. We were all giggling when we left. That was a lot of fun. But I want to go back now, and I want to get Tom Dongo to take me out on a couple of the tours and to the areas that I want to look at. Now, that Bradshaw Ranch that I interviewed him about, oh my God, he's got a new book coming out on that. And it's called Merging Dimensions, but he said that place was bought in the late 40s. It used to be one of those places where they'd film westerns, so a little kind of ghost town, western town. And it was bought by a Bob Bradshaw, who was a stuntman, and stuff was constantly happening there. There were UFOs, there were orbs, there were weird animals, like giant, things with monster footprints that had, strides of about 6 or 7 feet, growls, and it was just the most bizarre. It's typical Skinwalker Ranch kind of history to it. And it was sold or was bought by the federal government. And everybody had to leave. And it was shut down for almost 10 years. And then it was opened by the Department of Wildlife. And it's only open now if you want to go with them on a guided research. You're guided into the location for research on wildlife. But they won't let anybody else, the government won't let anybody else on that land. And it's probably one of the most bizarre hot spots in the whole Verde Valley in the Sedona area. It's crazy.
You said that's between Cottonwood and Sedona? I went to the Ancient Aliens Clubhouse in Cottonwood last time I was there. Like Laura Eisenhower and a lot of the speakers that were at Disclosure Con with me. And so I stayed in that area, man. We got this Airbnb randomly. So we were at the Ancient Aliens Clubhouse just like messing around all night. And then we had ordered this Airbnb, and we weren't even able to get to it till like midnight or later. And we pull up, and it's like up on top of this mountain with a 360-degree view of the whole Verde Valley. It was so amazing.
Bradshaw Ranch is a little bit northwest of Sedona, just outside of Cottonwood. Yeah, it's just kind of north right of Cottonwood and west of Sedona. So that's where the old Bradshaw Ranch is. But that whole area, everything out there is crazy active. That's the area, the Prescott Valley, that chunk of land. It's where the Phoenix Lights, that parade of UFOs in 1997, that's where it started. And allegedly, that's where it actually ended, too. But they all came from there, did a tour right down the highways, the main highway over top of Phoenix, right out of Arizona, and then hooked back around and came back. It was witnessed by 10% of the population. And these were from everything from the weird little sausage-shaped tic-tacky things to orbs to the full-on like the big V ones. And again, witnessed by 10% of the population of Arizona in 97. And that's the area they came from. They originated up in that area. And, well, Jerome, Arizona, it's wonderful haunted town. If you like ghosts, you go there and they'll go for lunch with you. They incredibly haunted old mining town. There's the mine shaft that they built. It goes 4,000 feet straight down into the ground. And that is supposed to have expanded since the mine shut down into an underground base, allegedly. And there are people who live out in the Prescott Valley, or as you were, I think it was Prescott Valley, yeah. They had felt vibrations. These weren't earthquakes. These were vibrations, like a drilling machine was going through, earth drilling machines. And there's been conversations about tunnel system that goes from the the Navajo military base there to Las Vegas in tunnels underground.
Wow.
Which is a heck of a distance, going basically from northern Arizona out into Las Vegas, because to be honest with you got to freaking go through the Grand Canyon to get there. So
I heard there's a lot of underground tunnels running all through under the country. From what I heard from like insiders, secret space program insiders and whatnot, they've been coming out. Especially the Missouri, like Midwest area. Apparently, there's a lot there.
Well, the Midwest also, bless them, have naturally occurring cave systems.
Yeah, I heard they're utilized.
Yeah, they're like literally from Georgia up into Ohio, and they're all connected.
Yeah.
And you get into the paranormal side of conversation, too, about beings that existed in these tunnels. And, they come out every so often and people see them and they describe them as big bug-eyed. And each state has a different name for them. Each American Indian tribe would have a different name for these beings that they would see. And the location.
The ant people that the Hopi talk about?
Yeah, ant people. The Hopi people call ant people, and I can't remember. It's not a gremlin. It's I can't remember the other names for them right off the hand. But it's when you get reports of the sightings, they're always within 10 miles of one of the openings to these massive cave complexes that are, rightly so, they're shut down for people to go digging around in them, because you'll lose people in those just naturally having fun. You'll fall and die. They are huge, and you can get lost in those. Kentucky and Tennessee, there's so many caves out in that area. There's always somebody disappearing, and you can blame it on the little weird critters that live inside those caves, or are perceived to live inside the caves, or they just get lost and die. And they have been for centuries, as long as I
remember I read that Mark Twain book when I was younger. I forget, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Is that the one where they go down? It's like the two little kids. They go down the cave and they bring the ball of yarn or string with them, and then they get lost. Yeah, I've been in that cave before in Missouri. I forget Merrimack Caverns? I think that's what it's called. Been to quite a few caves in that area.
That's crazy. And it's like, that's basically up and down the entire eastern seaboard, well, inland. But there's wonderful cave systems there. Here in Canada, we don't have any caves. No, we don't. Whole different geography. We have well, I shouldn't say a whole different geography. We do have the prairies. We have a plateau, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then the Rocky Mountains, that's spine going right down into Idaho. And then down here on the rainforest on the Pacific coast, we just have Bigfoot. And I guess there are caves here because they're all through Washington State, Oregon, Montana, and that area up into our province, where things that people have seen over time are kind of associated to caves, but not in the systems that you guys have down there. It's fascinating. That's another thing you're going to have to do. You're just going to have to get out there and start going from Sedona to Kentucky and poke around in all these paranormal places and expand your spears into something. Go grab some. No, you can't take the stalagmites and stalactites off, because
that would be cool. It would be cool, but at the end of a spear. I know those are like protected places, though. Yeah. Maybe if I found a secret one somewhere. A
cave that, name it after you. If you want to, and for my listener again, shamanspears.com, shamanspears.com. Paula actually makes these, and one of the ones that I had, or the one that I bought, is very, very cool. And back in July of 2019, I had a shaman actually come here and remove a whole whack of beings out of my house. We removed 9 of them out, and my friend, who is the shaman, used my spirit, added it to her collection of energetic devices, and she said it was absolutely resonating, and it actually helped the elemental beings that reside under my house to help remove, who was that? The large snake one. No, the one that was came running out, looked like a deer, turned into a cow. A cheetah, a monkey, a snake, a wolf, a coyote. It just kept changing, and eventually turned into a butterfly and tried to get out of the cage she had put it in. And that's when the 4 elemental beings kind of came up and said, "Nah, you're leaving. You got to get out of this room," which is a whole other episode of, don't invite people into your house who are explosive, energetic beings that have no control over it, because she opened a portal up in one of the rooms downstairs that we had to seal, and then had to deal with everything that came through the portal, including a relative of mine who was killed in the 16 or 1700s while on a ship in the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he just wanted to cross over, and it was the easiest way was to get a hold of me, was to come through this portal. And he got sick. He was sick on a ship, and back in the day, if you're sick and they don't know what's wrong with you, you're basically euthanized. whether it's with a bullet between the head or between the head, if you're two-headed, between the eyes, or some other way. But yeah, that's where he passed, and he came up. He came through the portal, which is really bizarre. And the psychic said, yeah, this guy just came through. His name is this. And I said, that's a relative of mine. And she said, oh, yeah, he said he is. And he thanks everybody for helping him out, and off he went. So hopefully the rest of my relatives are good where they are and aren't going to start popping through the walls here to want to cross over. They can figure it out for themselves. But your spirit helped with this. Yeah, your spirit did help. Now, and if you guys get a chance to go to the Conscious Life Expo this weekend coming up in LA, that's February 7th to 10th. Of course, Apollo's going to be speaking there at 6 till 6:45 on Friday night, and it's at the LAX Hilton. Go to her booth and look at her spears. If you are at all intuitive, when you hold those things resonate very, very highly. The one I have has got a lot of it's got tourmaline in it, and that was really the one that I actually wanted to buy, and I left and came back. Somebody else bought it, but that one felt really good too. But this one feels wonderful, and it's got tourmaline in it, and a lot of the other crystals that resonate highly with me are combined into the spear itself. Now, these things aren't like 10 feet long, and you don't throw them at the side of Mastodon. Mine is, and for those of you who don't know what I'm doing, I'm holding my hands apart, trying to guesstimate distance. It's about 2 feet, 2 feet long. So it's like a little pointy stick, and it just sits on my mantle with some of my other woo-woo stuff. But it's wonderful. And yes, it's crystal, so yeah, I clean them. I leave it out in the sun. Well, the one end of because there's tourmaline in it, I also leave it out under a full moon. But yeah, it has wonderful energy. And I do Reiki on my dog because he's got an appliance in his rear right knee, and he's arthritic, so he likes it when I lay the spear across his rear right leg. He just kind of takes a deep breath and relaxes, so he feels some resonance coming from it too. Your spear that you will not sell me has something from Egypt in it, which is really cool.
The trident. Yeah, everyone wants the trident one. It looks like a trident because the end of it. So I got an obelisk that was carved out of the Valley of the Kings, and an egg, and it was like about an egg that goes on the other end, and they both have glyphs carved into them. And it's like alabaster that came from the Valley of the Kings. And I actually went in this little shop like right near the Valley of the Kings, and there was like these locals were just carving. I like literally was watching them carving, and I don't know, I guess they're like hammering these rocks down. It looks like a lot of hard work. So yeah, and they had this amazing shop that just had walls just filled with all these alabaster stone creations that they had made. So I got those for this one. So
you're gonna have to go back and get one. That shop,
definitely want to go back to Egypt.
The little Egyptian who owned the shop, his name was Ali Baster, and he no, I'm kidding. Welcome to my shop. I am Ali Baster. What are these made out of? Alabaster. What was the other thing I want to? I really, next time we hang out, we're going to talk about some of the cool stuff that you're doing. Again, Solutions for Humanity is the presentation you're doing at LAX Hilton for the Conscious Life Expo, which is the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of February, which is all coming up pretty quick, Paula, so I should let you go. Please go to her website, shamanspears.com. You can also go learn a little bit more about her on ApollaAstaria.com. That's APOLLA Asteria.com. She's an actress, a musician, a model. She does everything. And all of that, she is one of us. She is a woo-woo person. And the best part about it, a lot of fun and amazing energy. And her spears, the shaman spears, are something that if you are interested in crystal healing, anything like that, you should definitely take a look at what she makes. And she will make custom spears for you, right?
Yes. And I will actually have all my pre-made products up on the website in about 2 weeks. So right now you can just have the customized spear option, but I will have all my products up after. I just did a group shoot for promotional materials for the website, so we'll have everything up on there soon if you want to get a pre-made one. But for the time being, there's customized options. So
excellent. If you spend a lot of money, send her to Egypt to buy some more of that stuff from Mr. Ali Baster.
I would love that. I want to go back.
Thank you very much, Paula. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, it was so great talking with you. Let's do it again sometime.
What's wrong? And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountains. Speak up, somebody hide, somebody better hide. And through the hail, like a pack of angry